Today, we're talking about the art and necessity of self-definition. That's like a really interesting subject. Yeah, I was thinking about what should we talk about? And as I was trying to figure out what to talk about, I was like, well, if I knew who I was, it'd be easy to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? If you know who you are, Stephen, it's easy to talk, right?
Well, we're a very politicized nation right now, and just think about it this way. If you knew, if you could ask the right questions, wouldn't it be interesting to find out who is Joe Biden really? Who is Donald Trump really? Who are they? If we were knowing them, not their public self,
Yeah.
but if we were knowing them in their casual self, in their at the gym self or whatever, when they're not guarded, when they're not politicizing, when they're not being trying to impress people, when they're just being the men that they are, wouldn't you want to know that before you could make a decision about voting? I would.
Yeah.
And it's not about Republican, Democrat. I'm not
No.
talking that. And
Yeah.
it's not about right or left. I'm saying I know men that I personally would not want to vote for in any position.
Yeah.
I also know men that have no real credentials that I would take a risk putting them in certain conditions
Yeah.
because of their integrity, because of the way they think, because of the way they love their children, for example, or the way they are neighbors. I've met these men and thought, this guy's a true, genuine, golden leader. He
Yeah.
doesn't know it.
Yeah.
He's a real contribution to the culture. I would vote for him for president before I'd vote for about the last 100 people who ran for president.
Yeah, it's an interesting the whole idea of actually. Let me change my mics really quick. I didn't put on my good mic, so I'm going to put on my good mic. I totally forgot. Give me a second here.
Your voice sounds really good to me. So,
Yeah, but
well,
how's that now? Is that better?
no, it's
How about
just
now? Is that better?
no, it was better before. No, it's good. Good. Keep going.
This looks kind of cool. That's all it is.
Yeah, it does. Makes you look professional.
Smoke and
Maybe
mirror.
maybe you're a professional. Maybe I mean, couldn't.
Yeah, it's an interesting question you're talking about, like the self definition. It's really interesting because I think we opened up a whole can of worms in it. Like and you think about a leader, and you think about you go Steve Jobs, and I think about him, and I'll think about like him and his family life. The guy was incredibly successful as a CEO, as a thought leader. You could think he's very, very innovative and very creative. And then yet he has a screwed up family life. He's got daughters that don't like him, all that. And then you have the same thing with you when you really dig into some of the politicians. I mean, just like they're gamblers, they got a lot of baggage, and it's interesting. Like if we actually knew who people actually were, I'd say most of the people in office wouldn't be in office.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Be a whole different group of people in office. Be an interesting.
Well, it's very interesting because we have plenty of illustrative material. My Catholic friends would say, if I had known the troubles in the Catholic Church, would I have trusted my children? Well, if I had known the problems with Boy Scouts, would I have trusted my children? If I had known what it would do to my son's brain to belt his head into another guy's padded thing in football, would I have let him play football?
Yeah.
If I had known what it would cost me to marry an abusive man that I thought I could save, would I have married him? So you could keep going with that. We don't know, and we need to know. I'm not demonizing any of those subgroups. Don't misunderstand me. There's a whole lot of wonderful leaders in Boy Scouts. I've known some of them. They're take it to the bank leaders. They're wonderful. Yeah. I've known a bunch of priests who are just beautiful, wonderful people. I'm not demonizing either of those organizations. I'm just saying, if you knew, then what would you have done? Well, there's a bunch of things. We've been through relationships, most of us. And if we say, if I had known that about him, if I had known that about her, would I have married her?
Yeah.
So we use the term on this side of the room, we use the term vetting a partner. How do you vet a partner? You're in love, you like the way she kisses and everything, but how do you vet her? How do you find out? So there's a poem by William Stafford. He's a good poet to know about. And it's called A Ritual to Read to Each Other. And the opening lines are this: if you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others make will prevail in our world. And following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. And he
Mm.
goes on. It's beautiful. It goes on. You should read it. Look it up. A ritual to read to each other. So that he gets very, very clear there for those of you who are listening out there about capturing that idea. If you don't know who Martine and Stephen are, then what are you doing listening? Are they to be trusted? Are they honest? Are they transparent? Are they really about what they say they're about? Is there something in you that says, oh, I don't know about that? Because that's the fundament at which we work with every single day.
Yeah.
We work with that, trying to sort through who are you?
You got so let's go back into relationships. So think about,
Yeah.
just think about a marriage. You go into a marriage, and yeah, sure, you want to know about the other person.
Yes.
And then you get to know the other person. But then, like, I don't want to get too esoteric on it. Let me come from a different angle.
Yeah.
So I was just on the phone with a coaching client a little while ago, and he was talking about he's going from literally from one industry to another. He's changing from construction into a different industry completely. And he was sharing with me about what he learned in construction. Like he would make mistakes. It was something to do with shipping, like they were waiting for products. So he didn't know that he needed to like check. He needed to check with this other thing when he ordered something. He didn't know that. But and then so that the fact that he didn't know that cost the company money and cost the money time. But he didn't know, and he didn't even know that he didn't know.
Yes.
So how much are you going to know about the relationship that you get into, like the
Right.
the marriage you
Right.
get into? You might give me a whole dossier and to learn everything, all this stuff. Well, you did this, you did this, you do this. This is where you're from, this is where you're raised, all that. But then you show up as a human being, and then you have the mixture of all those and the emotions of all those and the biases of all that different mixture in your culture and your history and your emotions and your needs and the stories that you make up about stuff, and you have all that, and then you're mixing it up with somebody else, and then that creates conflict. Hopefully it turns out good, but what you're going to have is you're going to have conflict regardless of how well you know yourself and how well you know somebody else. You're just going to have that.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
think, what is the thing that I would want in a relationship? Like, what is the thing I'd want in a relationship? And a guy that I was coaching yesterday came in, he's got a new relationship, and he hired me. He's been divorced for a few years. And he's like, I don't want to make the same relationship and make mistakes in my new relationship that I was making in my old relationship, in my marriage. And so we were looking at that, we were looking at what could happen, but it was really, when it really comes down to working on it, is how do you deal with conflict? How do you deal with something being said to you that triggers you? How do you deal with the triggers? Like, what is your natural response? How do you deal with it, and how do you want to deal with it? Because things are going to happen. Am I making sense here?
Yeah. Yes.
So, when it says the art and necessity of self-definition, I think when you really look at it, it's not how I define myself, it's how I want to define myself. That's where I think where the power is.
So that brings in a concept we play with here, especially with young men in sports, by the way. I call it the entourage.
Yeah.
And so where I kind of started using that was a guy who went all the way up to the college all-stars and was a prime candidate for Major League Baseball. And he blew up his shoulder, and he became a coach of athletes. Now, we started talking about entourage because he had a big one. He had been coached well since he was 4 or 5 years old. His father had paid for the best coaching all the way up, so he had extremely competent coaching. And so one of the things that happen is you get to be 15, 16, 17, 18, and without realizing it, you may be pitching for the entourage, for those coaches, for that family who believed in you so much. You start worrying because they're at the game. There's a woman in the United States professional soccer team. I think you pronounce her name Papino or Papino maybe.
Mm-hmm.
She says, and she just retired this year, she says she never wants her family at a championship game because she'll be playing for them, not for herself.
Yeah.
So you get the idea of the entourage is all those people who love you, all those people who've influenced you, all those people you want to impress, all those people you're mad at, whoever that is, the people who have some kind of an emotional connection with you, big or little. And
People
then you, what's that?
Those vested in you, right?
Yeah, vested, that's a good word. Or you're vested in them by whatever their approval. And then if you start getting that, well, the kind of the hard thing we have to say is you have to leave your entourage.
Yeah.
You have to
separate yourself from that.
Yes.
Or you have to learn how to, or you have to learn how, well, you don't have to do anything. What I find is there's opportunities, is that in coaching, and I'm sure you have the same thing, is that situations give you opportunities to grow. So how can you grow given the fact that you're now playing and your dad's in the stands and you're looking for his approval, and that's affecting your pitching? That's a picture that's an opportunity to grow. That's an opportunity to grow. And what it's going to require is a separation. In most cases, that'll require a separation, right? And like, but that's my dad, it's like, I want him, feel proud of me, or that's my mom up there. I want, she sacrificed everything for me. I want her to feel proud of me. And so what you have is, I think what I say is you only have so much attention available in you. Let's say you have 100 units of attention. And if what you need in order to pitch good, in order to do the task good, is up in the 90s, the 80s, 90s, 100, you need to be able to focus as much as you can on the task at hand. If that's taking 5 units away from you, you can easily go from 80 to 75, And then if you then make a mistake, then you're going to add more units of attention. So now I'm like looking at my dad. So now I just added another 15. So now I got 20 units of attention. In order for me to be effective, I need to be 85 to 100. But I'm now at 75 or 65. I'm way below. And then things are just gonna spiral down. You're going to be spiraling down because you're investing. Not only are you invested, but now you're in real time. You're investing more attention into that appreciation, acknowledgement, all those different things.
So you have to know who your entourage is, and you'd have to know who is important to you. Maybe you had a coach in high school that was not particularly fond of you, and you pitched anyway. And now you're in the college all-star game, and that coach is there, and you said something, and you says, "I'll show him."
Yeah,
that's the worst thing you can do on the mound. Yeah, you don't want to show anybody anything. You want to pitch.
Yeah, you're giving units of attention to that, right?
Yes,
that's what I'm saying. So I have 100 units of attention. It's going to require 85 to 100 for me to do a really good job, and now I'm giving him 15 units of attention. So I'm now pitching at what do you call it? I'm deficient in my pitching. I'm at 70, and it's not going to get any better until
now. If you put the same thinking in your relationship, if you're a woman watching this, your relationship with a new man, or you're a man watching this, your relationship with a new woman, if you put the same thinking in that, You have no business wondering what she thinks or he thinks.
Talk about that. Go into that.
What
That's
what you
interesting.
need to do, what you need to do is focus on who you are and how you love. That's letting go of the entourage. So there's another concept of the
Mm,
entourage. We
yeah.
call it radical learning. And radical learning, radical, the word radical means to the roots. So I want to go back to the roots of myself, what I call the golden child within. When
Mhm.
I'm loving my wife and she doesn't know that she's being loved in the way she's being loved because she's never been that loved in that way by a man, but I know I'm loving her. Maybe
Mhm.
I'm confronting her. Maybe I'm saying no about something she wants to do, and I'm saying, sorry, I can't do that. Or maybe I'm just silent and working and having to work in the well being of our family and so on.
Yeah.
She may not know. There's no judgment of her for not knowing she's being loved. And the way I discovered that was she's loving me many times, and I have no clue that she's loving me. I don't know how to call that love. Me and my mother didn't discover that. Me and my sister didn't discover that. So I go, wow, that's the way a woman loves a man, the way you just love me? That's brand new information for me.
Yeah.
And she has a right to say, you're a dope, but she doesn't. And I can say the same thing. This is the way I love you. It's not Disney love. It's not some Hallmark card kind of love. It's raw, core, true, honest, loving. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern others make will prevail in our world. So
Yeah.
the pattern others make in the entourage is the pattern they make. Parents and brothers and sisters and grandparents, they're all part of the entourage.
They're all
So I have
contributing.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, I have to break with that.
Yeah. That's interesting. I like that radical learning. So I think about like how I want to operate inside of a relationship. Like this is how I'd like to operate. This is how I'd like to communicate inside of a relationship.
Yeah,
And I'm going to say what I need to say. I'm going to be who I need to be. And what I need is I need the ability to make mistakes at it. I need to be able to make a mistake.
you have to give yourself that permission, not her.
Well, I think it's both. I think it is both. I think, you know, for me, and I'll say it this way, because I know in business, you know, like in business, I have clients that are trying to communicate something because I do mortgages as well. So in the mortgage business, I'll have clients that are communicating to me and they're using words that they're not using the right word for the maybe they're saying escrow or they're saying title or they're saying appraisal and they mean something else.
Yes.
And so for me to be able to listen and allow them to say what they're saying and not have to correct them. And it's not about correcting because I think sometimes when we correct each other in situations that it creates us being defensive. Now I understand for me personally, I've got to own that. I've got to own the fact that I'm defensive and I just got offended by being corrected. I can, okay. And at the same time, I want to be able to give room, capacity, the dignity, the empathy to the person that's communicating with me in case they make mistakes in their communication, not to hold them. Well, that's what you said. You said it this way. You know, like, yeah, you were the coach that you didn't like me in high school and I'm going to get you. You know, it's like, well, maybe, maybe I misunderstood the coach. Maybe the coach actually was trying to help me and I was too big of a knucklehead to see that. You know, maybe my dad really cares a lot for me more than I give him credit for, or my mom, you know,
Okay,
this
but I want to interrupt you there
please, yeah.
because because you're already going into supporting the entourage, and what the individual needs to do is separate from the entourage. My dad may have been giving me gold, but I have to start fresh because I'm now at the beginning of my life, not the end. So I'm having to leave the entourage, whatever it looked like. All these coaches had my well being in mind. I have to leave them all when I'm on the mound in the seventh inning in the Yankee Stadium. I have to leave all the coaching. So all there is in the entire auditorium or whatever they call it, the
Stadium, yeah, the
stadium,
stadium.
in the entire stadium, all there is me and the batter.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Now, if you look at that, and then I go, here's what Tommy Costello teaches. I go strike. I go, okay. I go strike. I go, good. I go ball in the dirt. Wow. I go, so he says, you can't give any more energy to the success, strike, strike, than to the failure, ball in the dirt, because you have to create the space in you that knows who you are and where you are and why you are. And that's it with you. You're there in Yankee Stadium
Yeah.
and you're a pitcher and you've had enormously, tremendously successful coaching for 100 years, and you're a gifted athlete, and the only person in the entire world is that batter. You and that batter. That's it. And that's radical because you consciously let go of the other stuff so that you can be in the moment with that opponent,
Yeah.
and that your all your coaching will come to fruition and your intention will come to fruition. If you take that same model and think of it as a between a man and a woman, it's not about who she is and what she's not doing right, or who you are and your mistakes in the past and all that stuff. It's about, who do I love right at this moment in time? And she says that to herself, or he says that to himself. Who do I love? Do I love you? Uh, yeah. Okay. What's my intention?
Yeah.
Not what's your applause, but
Yeah.
what's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I think the access to that in break that we talk about that in my workshop is that we say, kind of like what you were saying about the pitching, strike, strike, ball in the dirt. And if what we do is we are trying to have a positive meaning when something happens, that's an attempt at that's an attempt at having something motivate you externally, and then you have no control over that. If
Right.
you create a negative meaning, it's the same thing. They're both rabbit holes. And people say,
Yes.
no, well, thinking positive is really great. Well, no, it's a great concept. But if what you're trying to do is if you're trying to strike somebody out, you're throwing balls, and you're not throwing strikes, or you hit somebody, and you're trying to think positive, it's hard to think positive with that.
Right.
And so then if you're thinking positive, then you're making negative thinking bad. You're saying, well, negative thinking is not the way to think. And guess what? You're going to think negative. The minute you think negative, you're going to go down the rabbit hole. And that can happen in a relationship. So we talk about as a neutral meaning. How do you be
Yeah.
neutral? How do you be
That's right.
neutral in a meaning? I have a neutral meaning, which is curiosity. Let me be
Yeah.
curious.
Right.
Be curious. How do I want to handle this ball? I'm going to be
Yeah.
curious. I want to handle this ball by letting it go. Cool. I'm going to let that go. All right. Let me
Yeah.
take a breath and pitch again. How am I going to handle this? I just struck out two guys, and I'm up two strikes and no balls. I'm up. What is that? 2-0, right? That's me. 2-0 right now, and I just got to throw one more strike. Guess what? I throw a ball. But if I go neutral, I don't even think about the first two guys I struck out. I don't even think about
No.
the first two strikes I threw. I'm
Right.
present. I take a minute. What is it? I want to be curious. What is it I want to do? I just want to throw a strike. That's it. That's what I'm made for. I'm going to throw a
Yeah.
strike. Take a deep
Right.
breath. Throw the strike. Boom. Threw a strike. We're out. You're like, oh, all three are out. Let's go. And what I find is you find yourself in relationships is you find yourself present with the person. You're not trying to create romance. You're not trying to recreate something you didn't have. You're simply present with another being. And that's what I find as a radical learning, because in that presence, and I didn't know this term until right now, I just wrote it down, is for me, radical learning would be that moment where you actually discover who that person is.
Yes. Who you are.
Yeah.
And that nobody in the whole entire planet in all the years of history can tell you who you are. I mean, that's right out of the Bible, by the way. Those of you who
Ah,
know
is it?
something about the Bible, they came to Jesus and they said, hey, they say you're the next Elijah, or you're the next this or that. Jesus looked at them and he said, who do you say I am? And so Peter answered that, but Jesus was really saying, only I can tell you who I am. They can't.
Yeah.
So I'll give you, because we're out of time, it went fast today, but we need to, there's a bunch of things to explore in this conversation. And Martine and I we'll look for another way in the next podcast or two to really give flesh to this whole conversation. But I want to tell you a little story. Can I tell a little story, Martine,
Yeah,
before we
before you
go?
tell the story, let's actually, I want to invite them to reach out to either you or me, and let's investigate the story that's going on with you. Let's investigate what's going on with you and how the art and necessity of self-definition can help you in your life.
Yes.
Great thing. So, you see Dr. Frueh's text. If you want to reach out to Dr. Frueh, there's a text he has a text number. Please text him. He'll reach out to you. And if you want to have a conversation with me, I'll have my information in the description and that's the best way to connect with us. And we'd love to have these conversations with you. These are the kind of conversations that Dr. Frueh and I have with each other, often the same kind of conversations we have with the clients, the people that we coach.
And if you want to, in that text, you don't necessarily have to ask me for help. You can, but what you can do also is say, I'm interested, like Martine just did. I'm interested in this concept of radical learning. Here's my experience of it. So get some interaction going with the two of us that will make these podcasts better.
Yeah.
That's our intention.
And really make your life better. That's what it's really about.
Yeah. Here's the story. I have a son. I have 9 children. I have 4 sons and 5 daughters. And a couple of them are adopted, a couple of them are step, and the rest are all natural born. So this is my son, Steve. He was 5 years old. And back quite a while ago, and I was working in Glendale as a therapist. I had a very full practice. I was working 50 or 60 hours a week, plus running some groups and plus teaching at Cal State LA. So I was kind of frantic, you might imagine. I come home Saturday about 2 p.m. I'm wiped out. I pull our Chevy Suburban in the driveway, and Steve comes out of the house and hits me like a Muhammad Ali punch. Dad, I want to see the elephants. Can we go see the elephants? And we're living in Burbank, and we're just 15 minutes from the zoo. So I say, sure, get the other kids. So I think we wound up with 5 of them and my wife at the time. And we all got into Suburban and went to the Los Angeles County Zoo. And then we got out. And in the Los Angeles County Zoo are these asphalt pathways about 18 inches wide. And they kind of undulate. They kind of do that. Mm-hmm. And so we're walking fast. I'm like kind of the commanding officer. I'm way up front. All of a sudden, I realize there's nobody behind me. And I turn around. My wife is about 10 or 15 feet behind me, but the other children are all spread out. And way back on his hands and knees is my son, Stevie. And he's saying, Dad, come here. You've got to see this. And I'm saying, Steve, we'll miss the elephants. It's 20-5. It closes at 5. We'll miss the elephants. Get over here. No, Dad, you got to see. We have a fight. So I storm back there in my best father attitude. Oh, I'm going to, like that. And I get back there. And by the time I get back there, the daughters and he are all on their hands and knees looking down. And my ex-wife, who's a tall, lovely woman, an artist, she's looking down. She's on her hands and knees too. All these butts are up in the air. And they're looking at one place, and it's a grill in the middle of the dip of the asphalt. And then down in the grill, there's water. And in the water, there's popsicle wrappers and popsicle sticks, purple, yellow, magenta water, oil slick. And Steve looks up at me and says, Dad, isn't it beautiful? And I look down and I think, I saw garbage. He saw beauty. Notice that in your life. Notice it. What do you see? What do you bring? Hope to see you next time.
You guys have an awesome afternoon. Please like and share it. Tell all your friends about the podcast, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yes, ma'am. We will.